future, you will obviously capture the Republican presidential nomination from your political party. I'm assuming in the near future also that you'll receive an endorsement from the last Republican president, George W. Bush. Give us your assessment of the presidency of George W. Bush.
I think we can all agree that President Bush, he put in some policies that worked and some that didn't. Something that I actually think we should get back to is how he wanted to deal with Iran, something that President Obama has canceled. Under President Bush, he wanted to put troops in Poland and inceptors in Turkey to prevent any kind of launch from Iran of any nuclear weapons. Getting back, other than that, the that's about all I can do.
Thank you very much. I guess we should move on to Dr. Paul to answer the question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the idea that the nomination is already wrapped up for Mr. Romney over here is the premise is completely flawed. Ron Paul actually, in the past couple weeks, 3 weeks ago, he won the Missouri caucuses because that's what he's continuing to say. It's all about your ground game. He's organized, and in these caucus states, you go in, and that initial vote is a beauty contest. Nothing happens at that vote, and this is in several states. And the people who stay afterwards and want to get involved, they run for delegates. So Ron Paul's taking a majority of the delegates in Missouri. Yesterday, or the last couple of days, he won Missouri and Minnesota's entire national delegations. So there's 2 more. He's poised to win Colorado. I'm sorry, he already won Colorado. He's poised to win Maine. He's poised to win Louisiana. He's poised to win Alaska. He's poised to win in Montana. There's several states that they're caucus states, and Ron Paul activists, they can make a difference, and they have, and it's becoming evident now. And as for the Bush presidency, I mean, big government conservatives, just like a big liberal conservative, Obama and Bush and Romney and Newt, I mean, that's gone up, the military's gotten bigger, and your liberties have gotten less. So, I mean, the only person who stands for substantive change up here is, me.
Thank you very much. Rocky Anderson?
Well, as Salt Lake City mayor, I was the only mayor of a major U.S. city to call for the impeachment of George W. Bush. He advocated militarism beyond anything that's ever been seen, killing of U.S. civilians and starting legal wars over no evidence and false trails, lying to the American people, and committing civil rights abuses, civil liberties abuses throughout his tenure. And he presided over the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. He was one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. And Republicans here need to call on that President Bush was not a good president, and he did a lot of things wrong. Just as President Obama needs to say he did those things wrong and has gone after almost the exact same foreign policy as President W. Bush.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gingrich.
Well, in regards to my assessment of the last president, it's very difficult to criticize a president faced with such daunting challenges as September 11th, 2001. Faced with such challenges, although the intelligence we now know may have been flawed, at the time this was the greatest attack on America since Pearl Harbor. This was the greatest attack in more than 6 decades. So for us to sit around this table in this debate now and to split hairs over whether or not President Bush was the worst president or the best president is largely irrelevant because he was faced with near gargantuan tasks and he handled them to the best of his ability. And as far as the inevitable nomination of my opponent Mitt Romney, this is ridiculous. It is simply the primary election. We have not had our general election yet, and I am confident that based on my experience as Speaker of the House and my 20 years in Congress, that I still represent the most experienced candidate in this election.
Thank you very much. And Mr. President, you have the floor.
President George W. Bush likes to compare himself to Harry S. Truman in terms of his foreign policy and how in 50 years that he will be seen as a brilliant mind who helped orchestrate a new era of American dominance. Frankly, he compares closer to Herbert Hoover than he does Harry Truman.
Thank you very much. We'll have the 1 minute retort, trying to go back into the same order. So from Romney to the Speaker's rights and then back to Gingrich and Romney. So, Romney, you have the floor from me.
The question was on the
Evaluation of the Bush.
evaluation of Bush. I don't think there's much more you can say. I also think it's been too short to judge, but any support, I've gotten support from Bush the first and Barbara Bush, so any support is good.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cole, you have.
Yeah, Newt, when you're discussing 9/11, one of the worst attacks in U.S. history, and we talk about Bush's foreign policy, you can't talk about those without also talking about blowback, which is the term that the CIA uses to talk about why countries do stuff that will hurt us. So basically, 9/11 was a result of U.S. policy in some ways, in some spotlights. 1953, the Iranian people had a popular elected government. The U.S. organized a coup, overthrew them, and installed the Shah. Okay, and that government then took over because the U.S. stimulated that. And then in 1978, the people were fed up because this guy was a dictator, and they overthrew him, which then caused the Iranian hostage crisis. And further on, the U.S. continued to get more and more involved. We have like several hundred bases in the Middle East, bases around the world, and that pisses people off. They don't like when you invade their country. How would you like if China had a base in South Carolina right now, or off the coast of the United States? I mean, that would be threatening our empire. How do you think these other countries feel? That's why they attacked us.
Thank you very much. Rocky Anderson.
One thing we have to know as well is that both parties participated in Bush's administration. Democrats as well as Republicans voted for the war in Iraq. They voted for the Patriot Act. They all voted for all these civil liberties abuses of the presidency. They all went along with it, and both parties are responsible for President Bush's administration. They're both corrupt. They're both part of the same system, and they do everything the same in foreign policy.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gingrich.
Dr. Paul, your comments regarding blowback are well taken, to be certain. However, are you seriously suggesting that the U.S. had no business defending our core security and values against communist expansion? Although certainly the 53 coup in Iran could have led to some ramifications down the road, they were aligning themselves and opening relations with the USSR. And we simply could not have a repeat of Korea or any of these other expansions of communism. And as far as the involvement in the Middle East is concerned, you are absolutely right with our oil interests, which is why one of my major beliefs is that we must end our dependency on foreign oil. And we have already come significant.
Thank you very much.
Wait, do you think it's okay to overthrow democratically elected governments? That's what you just said.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, you have a minute.
I would just like to say that we have every right to defend our oil interests in the Middle East. It is the lifeblood of our industry, and that on numerous occasions we have sponsored state actions that have backed up actions such as the 1953 coup.
Well, as both parties have shown, it's all about the big interest, the oil interest. That's all they care about.
Thank you very much. If anyone wishes to add on to such comments, you're always free to do that whenever you're called upon for the next question, but please keep such comments, say, written, I would advise. Make sure you address them the next time you get a chance to speak. Meanwhile, Dr. Clyburn, would you like to call on someone else to ask a question if there's any?
This is more for Dr. Gingrich. With acts like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, we see a lot of rights being taken away, indefinite detention of American citizens. Now, how do you see these bills or acts?
Well, while one could certainly make the argument that bills such as NDA and the Patriot Act could reduce the freedoms of American citizens, one must only ask, why would an American citizen be targeted by an anti-terrorist bill? Certainly, there must be some type of reason that a citizen would be picked up by such legislation and such acts. So Really, the only individuals who need fear a restriction in their rights are individuals who plan on committing terrorist acts. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much. I believe we shall move down to Mitt Romney for his Buck Anderson and Mr. President will be the last to speak. So Mitt Romney, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
The question was about.
The question was about the NDAA and the Patriot Act and the restriction, or the accused restriction of civil rights and liberties. Am I correct? Yes. So essentially, if you have any comments about either act, whether you're for or opposed to, or you may pass it.
I'm going to pass.
Okay, very good. Dr. Paul?
NDAA, the Patriot Act, and all of these are an example of a government that's so out of control that they've convinced us that it's okay to give up our personal liberty for our security. That's called tyranny. That's what dictators do. That's not what the United States of America was founded on. That's not what the United States of America, that's not why we're such a great country. And we never should ever give up 1 ounce of our liberty for national security by any means, because it doesn't work, for one. You think about the patting people down at the airport. There's got to be a more efficient way than them feeling us up. The NDAA, U.S. citizens getting arrested by the military, that's what they did in South America, in El Salvador in the late 1900s. I mean, this is stuff that happened in the past that we thought we've grown from, and apparently we haven't, with Obama signing this on January 1st. He signed it saying, oh, I'll never use this. You know, but he also said he would never use a signing statement, and he did a signing statement on the NDAA. So these are all politicians, and I don't know how